Hi, my name is Benny Johnson. As some of you know, I've been struggling with addiction. However, I decided to change my life and went into recovery. I started this podcast 90 Days Clean, and I want to take you along in my journey. What does lie ahead of me? Let me be frank, I do not know. Will I ever drink again? I do not know. This is how Stairway to Redemption was born. It is my search for answer in a real-time process of what is going to work for me. It is then my aspiration to help you figure out what's going to work for you. It is our journey together. Hello, and welcome back to Stairway to Redemption. This week, I'm honored to have Brian on the podcast. Brian and I went to college together, lost touch after graduation, and reconnected recently after he heard about the podcast. He reached out to me on Instagram and let me know that he's in recovery as well. And today, in addition of sharing his story, we are going to talk about the excessive drinking in college and how it can lead to addiction. I give you guys Brian. What's up, Brian?
Hey, Benny. Thank you for having me on. It's an honor. Uh, just glad and grateful to be sharing my story here today. So,
All right. Yeah, keep going.
I was just going to provide a little bit of background about myself and then we can see where things go. If that works for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. And as you can also segue directly to the state of the mind address, what's going on with you lately?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I'll start with that. What's going on with me lately? So, I'm in active recovery. I've been in recovery for a bit over 5 years now. I work with others, both from a sponsorship and a sponsee standpoint. And a big thing that I've really started to center my life around is this concept of being of service to others. Now, I am in AA. This is how I ultimately turn things in my life around. And one of the biggest things that I recognized was how self-centered I was. And there have been two big events in my life that have really shifted this frame of mind for me that have had impacts in other areas. So when I talk about that, I mean this idea of being of service to others, helping the next alcoholic. It's not something I would have thought about while I was out using because I was consumed with self. And in my program, I've learned so much about core values such as honesty, integrity, um, and these things have translated into my personal and my professional career. I currently employed. Um, I've been working in the cybersecurity industry for the past 11 years, and I've made some transitions. And I work with a career coach as well. And one of the biggest things that I did in moving to a new job in October was share with my career coach and my sponsor that I needed to work with people that had the same values as I did. I am a customer success manager, so I handle client relationships. And the biggest thing for me is that level of trust, integrity, honesty. If I say what I say, that means that that's what's going to happen. And in my previous employer, I didn't feel that I was aligned philosophically with our leaders, and that's okay. But I was very comfortable in knowing that my calling and my purpose is working with another group and another organization where these values are top of mind each and every day. So when I think about my journey in a high level, it's really that shift from what do I want and when do I want it to how can I be kind, considerate, caring of others and do the next right thing. That translates over to my relationship with my wife, my dog, my family members. and also my work. So that's a little bit of where I am right now. It's focusing on not what I want to do, but what is that right thing to do.
Uh-huh. Oh, it's beautiful because sorry, I was actually looking up a word that like can summarize exactly what you just said. Because you were talking about not only you wanted to have a job, but like also that idea of purpose, that sense of purpose, since you wanted something that aligns with your values and your philosophy of. And I remember reading about this word called Japanese word called ikigai with ikigai like IKI GAI, which is like basically the balance between your talent, your profession, and your passion. Like, because at the end of the day, and even I ran into that issue too when I was deep in addiction. My profession was not my passion. I worked for like a media company, which was like fun. I actually like my coworkers and the environment. But when I was sitting down and starting to code, because I was, software engineer, I was like, my code is meaningless. Like I write to make a website faster so somebody can know what the Kardashian or what Kanye said the latest are the fastest. And I'm like, or can see like what's the latest sneaker that's dropping next week that, or like I didn't feel like that I had a purpose, a mission, right? And it's funny that you just brought that idea of purpose and mission. And I'd never heard of a career coach. Like that's the first time that I heard somebody who's like, has a career coach. And I like the fact that your career coach is not your sponsor. We're gonna get back to it later because some people sometimes use a sponsor as like a financial advisor, a career coach, a love advisor. And like, that's not my understanding of what a sponsor is, but we're going to get back to it. First thing first, tell us about your story. How did you end up in recovery?
Absolutely. So I'll
Mm-hmm.
try to keep it high level, but I look back at my childhood and alcohol was always something that I saw growing up. Now I'm West African. I'm first generation Ghanaian. And for those of you who may not be too familiar with Ghanaian culture, drinking is everyday life. And I came from a very, very solid foundation, great parents. They've been together for 35 plus years, still together. But there was a lot of partying. And I thought that going out, drinking till all hours of the night, that was normal. So alcoholism is something that is a bit genetic in my family. It runs in my genes, a couple generations now, but that's the primary backstory. And another thing that's really important about my story is that until I came into recovery and started going to meetings, I don't know if I truly saw that as a child. I was always trying to fit in, but that was the case. I always wanted to be liked. I always wanted people to see me and I wanted to make friends with them. And how did I do that? Try to emulate what I saw. Now, being black in a high school where there's 40 black people and 2,500 students, you're different by default.
Mm-hmm.
So that's important for me when I think about it. Not only did I feel different, I was different. My life experience was different. So in high school, I drank a little bit. Uh, I won't go into the first time that I got drunk, but it was a mess. And the warning signs were there. I don't remember my first drink, but I remember the first time I got drunk. I threw up. I felt hungover the next day. And shortly
Mm.
thereafter, I thought, this was awesome. When can we do this again? And in high school, for me, it wasn't too easy to get alcohol. So it wasn't something that I prioritized doing. But hey, if we had alcohol, I was going to drink. I
Mm-hmm.
was involved with other substances at that time. And when I got to college, it was as if I had arrived because I had, in my mind, I had no responsibility, nobody nagging me in terms of what to do. I had freedom for the first time in my life. And you watch movies, you see what the culture is around college, and you think it's a heavy drinking society where it's it's expected, it's accepted, and it's expected of you.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where our paths crossed. Uh,
Yep.
Freshman year, floor five.
Yep. Yep.
And
Fifth floor, baby. Tower B.
yeah, I mean, Benny, I mean, you saw me. I was always drunk. And a lot of people drank, but I was drunk. I mean, one thing I've always struggled with is impulse control. If I want something, I want it. I go from 0 to 100 very quickly. And that's in anything I do in life. If there's something I'm really passionate about, I zero in on that. And at 17, 18, 19 years old, drinking and using was that focus. I partied hard, didn't take care of the things I needed to take care of because truth be told, I wasn't mentally mature enough to handle college, be on my own. But there's something that's really important that fueled my drinking that I want to share with you. And
Mm-hmm.
I got caught smoking marijuana with my by my parents. I think it was after freshman year or something.
Mm-hmm.
And my father was quite upset about that. But he told me one thing. He said, "Look, Brian, I really don't care if you do this if you take care of your responsibilities. Right now, your responsibilities are school, and you're not taking care of them. So I do care about this." And for me, that was like a light bulb that clicked off in my brain. You're telling me that if I do everything that everyone expects of me, whether that's get good grades, have a job, be self sufficient, and I can
Mm-hmm.
party, I was like, okay, cool, I got that. So I turned it around. Uh, Graduated, and I'm going to skim through my story, Benny. I
Mm-hmm.
graduated and I was making pretty good money. I was working in Manhattan for a while, and instead of focusing on school, all I had to do was work. But with good income coming in, that continued to fuel this this desire I had to have fun, to be the life of the party, to be the center of attention. I needed attention. It fed my ego at the time, and there was never a point in time at back then where I thought to myself, "Hey, I can't comfortably have a drink and be content with that." I was
Mm-hmm.
always thinking about the next drink. If I have one now, all right, how long will this take me till I can get the next one and the next one and the next one? There was no control. There was never control in my life. It was, it was compartmentalized in the sense that it progressed as my story got worse, but the
Mm-hmm.
behaviors and the symptoms of an alcoholic were always there for me. So a lot of my early youth was really around social drinking, going to parties, drinking with friends, making an ass out of myself, really regretting the things that I did the night before, having to apologize to people that I may have said some inappropriate things to or done the night before. And it was this vicious cycle over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
About a year after I graduated from school, I ended up moving to North Carolina. And it was an adjustment for me because I didn't really know anybody here. And I moved because of work. And all of that social drinking that I had engaged in during my college years, during my that one year that I was working in New York City, that evaporated. So what then occurred? I started drinking at home by myself. I mean, I would work, I would focus on doing what I needed to do to be a good employee, but as soon as I left that office, I was going to the liquor store, I was going to the gas station, and I would just drink the night away. And I saw nothing wrong with this because back to that point I made earlier, I continued to do what was expected of me.
Mm-hmm.
I got high marks at work. I got a promotion at work. I was managing a group of people by the age of 24. So in my mind and my ego being fed, I'm doing everything that's expected of me. Don't tell me how to live my life. I live on my own. I don't ask anybody for money. All these material items in my life just were stacking up. So if I wanna kick back, let me do that. And more importantly, when you remove the social drinking aspect out of it, I can drink as much as I want to without any judgment when I'm home by myself. And that's a great feeling for someone who is really struggling with alcoholism, which I was. I didn't really know it at the time. I ended up getting arrested for DWI uh, not long after I got that big promotion. And I was a little upset about that. Not because, oh, I made a mistake, I put myself and other people in danger, but because the courts were coming after my money. I had financial resentments. I had a resentment
Mm-hmm.
from the police officers because I was a half mile away from my house. Let me go home. Like, it's not a big deal. And it was at this point where I got introduced to AA. And initially, and I'm going to go back a little bit. Initially, I went to my first AA meeting because my mom saw me drinking at a party. She was very concerned about it. And she said, "Hey, I think you need some help." I said, "Okay, mom, for you, I'll do it." I went to 3 meetings, decided, you know what? I'm not doing this. I can't fathom a life without drinking. So fast forward, I ended up getting that DWI. I had to go to outpatient treatment. And I actually admitted to drinking alcohol during the outpatient treatment program, which was a strict requirement, no drinking. So I'm in violation of that. And they told me that in order to complete the treatment and as part of your probationary terms, you have to go to AA. So I went, I started listening a bit more, but I was really focused on the differences versus the similarities that I had with the other people who were sharing. Did that for about 6 weeks. The idea popped in my mind that, hey, it may be good. Maybe I should consider this way of life. And of course I didn't. When I finished my treatment, I finished all the requirements for my my probation. I was back out, and I was going faster than I ever had before. All the while, I was living this, as you call it, a duplicitous life. Everyone saw me one way. Hey, stand-up guy, always working hard, friendly, easygoing, easy to get along with. But this other side of me, I was miserable, and I was just drinking in excess because I was lonely. I I I was just unhappy. And I ended up moving in with my girlfriend, now wife,
Mm-hmm.
while this was all going on. And the thing that really changed for me was 2018 when I took a new position and I started working remotely. So I was a pre-COVID remote employee. And for anybody in alcoholism, in active alcoholism and addiction, it's really dangerous because I used to have a couple drinks in the office. People knew that I drank. People knew I drank pretty hard, but I was pretty buttoned up about it. There were rules. It would be on a Friday. That's it. But now I can have happy hour every day. I can have happy hour at 4 p.m. 4 then turns to 3, then turns to 2, then turns to 1. Next thing you know, within 15 minutes of my wife leaving for work, I'm drinking bourbon at like 8 a.m. in the morning. I mean, I had bottles scattered all over my office. I continued to conceal the depths and the extent of my drinking. And this went on for about 8 months. And I won't get into the situation specifically that made me finally admit to somebody else that I was an alcoholic, but I was on vacation with my wife and an incident occurred. And mind you, in my mind, I'm starting to recognize something is wrong here. I don't know what I can do. If you're familiar with the big book, and I know you are, Benny, uh,
Mm-hmm.
everything that's outlined in chapter 3, more about alcoholism, I tried. I tried limiting it to what I drank, where I drank, um, putting parameters around my drinking in hopes to reel it in. It all failed.
Yeah.
All failed. So I had an incident on vacation with my wife, and I broke down and I told her I needed help. I told her I had a drinking problem. It was the first time I admitted to anybody that I had a drinking problem, and I couldn't do it alone. And I made a resolution that I would get some help. Now, I didn't get help immediately. I white knuckled it for about 2 weeks, and I was back at the races when I decided, hey, let me have a drink. And I essentially went on a bender for about 2 weeks, just drinking from sunrise to sunset, passing out after a day of drinking by 8 p.m. And I remember the last night that I drank, it was a Wednesday, similar situation. At that point, because I was trying to conceal my alcoholism, we had a bar full of drinks in our house. I would I would drink whatever alcohol was there, and I would be driving drunk to the liquor store in the middle of the day on like a Tuesday. I would come home and I'd fill up the bottles that I drank to a level that I thought made it seem like, hey, no one has touched this. That's how deep it was going for me, the deception. And this had been going on for about a couple weeks. And there was nothing spectacular that happened that last night. Same old. I just drank until I passed out. The difference is, and I didn't know it at this time, was that it was the first time a power greater than myself had finally broken through. If you want to call it divine intervention, you can. But I woke up at about 4:30 a.m. in the morning. And in bed, there was a voice that simply said, you can't continue living like this. Like, it's over. And I was ashamed of myself. I mean, I thought, look, I'm 27. How could I be a responsible partner to my wife? How could I ever be a father? How could I ever be a person that I would admire and respect? Because I hated myself at that point. And That day, sitting in bed that morning, I said, you know what? We're done. Like, it's as simple as that. I'm not living this life anymore. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I was committed to finding a new way of life, but I didn't know where to begin. So I said, start thinking, what can I do? Like, it's obvious I can't do this alone, so I need help. And I recognized, hey, I did go to those AA meetings in the past, years ago. Let me find one. Let's see if I could do it. And I was going back and forth in my mind, thinking, should I do this or should I not? I don't know if I really want to. And I said to myself, if I don't do this now, I'm not going to do it. So I found a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
It was a 7 a.m. meditation meeting. And it was the first day I finally felt some sort of freedom because I I admitted to other people that I was an alcoholic. I admitted that I needed help, and for the first time in my life, I shut up. I I listened. If you know me, and you know me, I talk a lot, always talking, and I'm not really listening to the message, but I listened to the message, and I remember I started talking to folks after the meeting, and they advised me on a few other meetings to go to. They said all these
Mm-hmm.
things like get the big book, get a sponsor, and I said to myself, I don't know what any of this means, but if you say I should do it, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And so I did that. I ended up finding another meeting. It's currently my home group, and the first person who gave me my white chip, the only white chip I picked up to date, I asked him. I said, "Look, I was told I need a sponsor. Would you be willing to sponsor me?" And he said, yeah. And at that point, we embarked on a vigorous program for my recovery. And Benny, I don't know how deep you want me to go in terms of step work or things like that, but um,
Yeah. I
you know,
mean, like you can like you can like glance over it, like how like summarize it. Yeah, go ahead.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
So so basically, I committed to working with another person as to go
Mm-hmm.
through the steps, and I walked in there on step two. I admit it. Like for me, I was powerless. My life was unmanageable. There were no questions asked. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I'm at a meeting. If my life was going as well as I thought it would be, then I probably wouldn't
Yeah.
be here. So it was pretty easy for me to get through that. Now, the next couple of steps, which my sponsor calls decision steps, really revolve around this term God or higher power, whatever you want to call it. And I grew up in the church, wasn't really down with the church, so I had a little bit of prejudice. The times I went into the rooms when I was required by the courts, I honestly thought AA was more of a cult. It was and
Hell yeah.
I did. I'm like, well,
Yes.
what is all this kumbaya? And
Yeah.
for me, things didn't really start opening up until it was I was informed that my higher power can be whatever I want it to be. It's as simple as that. And it was extremely helpful for me to understand that we're not looking at things from a Judeo-Christian perspective, but you look at things how it will work for you. And once I was able to get over that hurdle, I went through the rest of the steps with my sponsor, and the biggest thing that I'll say is there weren't a lot of times I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy having to take a close look at some of the things I've done in my past.
Yeah.
But what I would say was one of the most valuable things was that it made me aware of a lot of my behaviors that
Mhm.
I wasn't aware of previously. If someone told me that I like to control things, I would have told them you're crazy. I'm not that's not who I
Mhm.
am, but now that I have a little bit of time under my belt, I recognize that my desire to control and manipulate outcomes to whatever my desired outcome is trumps everything else in life. I want things the way I want them all the time. And it was only by going through this program that I recognized that I can't do that. I can't live like that because ultimately I am not in control. I simply have to have faith and I have to be willing to accept whatever happens. That is maybe one of the biggest things I've taken away from the program. If I continue to just stay on the straight and narrow, um, my sponsor calls this is road of humility. Don't veer off too far into the side of pride or ego, and
Mhm.
conversely, don't veer off too far into the side of self pity. If I stay on
Mhm.
that line of humility, hey, things will happen. And I'll wrap it up by saying this:
Mhm.
life doesn't necessarily get easier when you get sober. It may get more difficult because you're not
Yes.
numbing yourself to
Mhm.
the realities around you. But I have a set of tools and processes that I can go through in my head to understand if I'm feeling a bit off and why that may be. I have people that
Yeah.
I can talk to and share things with that some of my closest friends and family would just never understand. I have a community of people that understand that, hey, while we may have had very different experiences, we have a lot of the same feelings and we've gone through a lot of similar situations in our lives, and they are very, very powerful resources for me. And one of the biggest things I would also say in my journey of recovery that I'm grateful for is this idea of
Mhm.
fellowship. You're not alone. And I grew up in an environment where you don't ask for help, you figure it out. You pick yourself up and hey, you do it on your own. It's okay to ask for help. We're human at the end of the day.
Mhm.
And it's only natural to lean on the support of others when you need that. And that's what I've gained through recovery.
All right. Wow, that's amazing, beautiful story. There's so many things I want to talk about. But yeah, thank you very much, Brian, for sharing. I I can relate a lot with what you just said, and especially on the being like, I'm from Senegal, you first generation here, your parents are from Ghana. And that sentiment of like you have arrived in college. I think why my drinking wasn't bad in college was that me being like generation zero and just making it here, I was focused during college, like more or less. Like I needed to learn English. I don't know if you remember my freshman year, I wasn't as fluent as I am right now, but like it was a bit different. But yeah, so that's what kept me focused. And once I got my citizenship, that's when I had that feeling of I've arrived, and that's when start things. I mean, I was also in New York City and wanted to party, but that's when things started going downhill because I was like, all right, now what? Oh, okay, it's time to fit in, and wanted to fit in too. That feeling led me to party, to drink, to excess, and like led me to this path. But like what you said about like the fellowship and the community is very true too. At the beginning too, I thought that AA has, and I still believe that AA has a bit of a cultist vibe, because sadly I think that some people to like the side of the triangle, the service, like you said, the fellowship and the big book. A lot of people I feel like are too leaning too far to the fellowship. So like it's a hanging out, and sometimes sadly some communities are not as well in that don't have the best of intentions. So some people, for example, you know, when you have like a career coach and a sponsor, some people when they're in the fellowship, they see as the sponsor as their um this I don't want to use the word God, but as their financial advisor, their relationship advisor. Like I will do anything that my sponsor tells me to do. Like, oh, if I want to go to the Yankee game, I'm gonna ask my sponsor first. That kind of stuff, which is like, no, I think you said it correctly. A sponsor will take you through the steps, and that part of like the 12 steps is very very important in my opinion. um then like the fellowship, like you said, it's great to have that community where like you can lean on people who know how you feel, that you can ask questions and stuff. And yeah, that's where like, you know, I'm at right now. The part where you said like that was going to the step was pleasant. Hell no. Like I'm on my fourth and fifth step right now. I had to make the inventory list of the people who offended me. Man, I had to take a day off work extra because I had to relive moments in my head that were not very pleasant, and I was angry for like extra day. You know, it was hard to calm down to like now I was thinking of those moments a bit more. And like you said, does it get easier when you're sober? No, because you don't have alcohol to numb. But having those tools and being able not to rely on alcohol, drugs to cope with what is going on in life, it's great. It's amazing. Yeah, I really like your story, and I hope like it's gonna touch a lot of people. But all
Absolutely.
right,
And
so
one thing
now,
I do want to
yeah,
say, if it's all right with you,
uh-huh, yeah, go.
a wise person told me
Mm-hmm.
what got me sober could get someone else drunk. So,
Yeah.
um, this is all what's worked for me, and it's worked pretty
Yeah.
well. And I'm the first to admit, with people that I work with currently, hey, different strokes for different folks. I'll show you
Mm-hmm.
what I've done, and it's on you to decide whether or not these are things you want to do as well.
Yeah. I meant to that. Like, I totally agree with you. Like, that's true. And I've myself sometimes a hard time wrapping my head around what other people do uh in order to stay spiritually fit. Like, what you calling that staying on the road of humility, I call it getting staying spiritually fit. Like, you know, like not fearing too much in like ego and pride and be like, oh yeah, I got this. Or like living in too much anxiety, oh my god, what's gonna happen at like, you know, on or what's gonna happen at Christmas? Like, you know, like am I gonna be okay? That's no. So but yeah, oh, let's talk about the college years a little bit. You talk about the idea of of fitting in college. What do you think were, I mean, because you are like also in a fraternity, what are the you think the factors that contributed to the culture of excessive drinking in college?
I think it's probably, once again, these are my thoughts, so
Yeah.
nothing is rooted in fact here, but
Yeah.
I think it's probably a sense of liberation. For me, it
Hmm.
was liberation. My parents, I wouldn't say were the strictest people in the world, but they laid down the law when they needed to. And for me, I felt free. I'm liberated. I could do what I want. And I I look at my college years now, and I said it when I went through my story that I was not emotionally mature enough to be in school when I was. But that was the only path that I knew existed. I thought you
Hmm.
graduate high school, you go to college. Like it's pretty binary. There's no other options for you. So I think that you look at the way college is depicted in TV shows and movies and books, whatever. Um, you see a lot of the hard partying lifestyle. You go to schools where they've got big collegiate sports programs.
Mm-hmm.
A big part of that community that you're building is around tailgating. It's around being part of the team and the experience and what comes with that. It comes with drinking and alcohol
Mm-hmm.
and for me, I think these are really big aspects that I saw that led me to drink a lot. And Benny, I mean, we hung around in pretty similar crews. To be fair, I hung out with people who wanted to drink and use heavily as well. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't necessarily surround myself with people who were exclusively focused on getting good grades and making meaningful connections through networking per se. I wanted to party. I found the people who wanted to party. So
Mm-hmm.
um, I think there's a lot going on there. But if I have to look at it, I think for me it was really that idea of liberation. Don't tell me what to do. I can do what I want. And some
Mm-hmm.
people may handle that a little differently. I just not me.
That's funny. Like you just said, like I do that idea of like, don't tell me what to do, but I do what I want. But like being in how does being in a fraternity influence? How did your relationship with your peer influence your excessive drinking? Did you feel yourself being peer pressured by, oh, I need to outdrink this person, or like I need to show that I can handle my alcohol more than others?
Surprisingly, no, I did not feel that with them
Mm-hmm.
because chances are I was always going to be the one who got the drunkest, anyways. Um, there, yeah, I mean that's just the truth, and
Yeah.
um, I made some really good connections during my undergraduate graduate years. People that I would call friends for the rest of my life, going through that
Mm-hmm.
process, and for me, yeah, maybe when you're going through the initiation, then there's a maybe an implicit desire to succeed internally. And for me, that was what drove me. I don't want to be seen as a quitter. I don't want to be seen as somebody who doesn't show up for their fellows. But I I can't recall a time where I was pressured into doing um, things as it pertains to alcohol that I didn't want to do, honestly, because I was more than willing to do it. So yeah, I mean, but the thing is, when you look at the Greek life culture, and that's not something I didn't even talk about, uh,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of it is centered around that idea of heavy drinking. So you've got college, you've got that liberation piece that I talked about, and then there's like
Mm-hmm.
a subsection of that where you meet a group of people and you decide, hey, you're gonna walk this life together for the 4 years that you're there and hopefully more. But as you go down that journey, um, you're going to be mingling with other fraternities and other sororities, and a lot of what is revolved around there is parties. It's not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily, hey, we're gonna focus on, and there is a fundraising aspect of it. There is charity and giving back, but I would say the majority of what we did was around partying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I totally agree with you, but like not living in regrets because like I believe that like these experiences that we went through were necessary for us to be where we are right now. But if you had let's say could you, yeah, let me rephrase, could you think of alternatives to that lifestyle that will have gave you the same feeling of fitting in or the same fulfillment socially, that will not have been necessarily involved with alcohol or parties?
looking back on it now, I mean, I don't think I truly identified what my true hobbies or passions were. Honestly, that's
Mhm.
still something I'm trying to identify today. Like what is, as my sponsor tells me, what is my truth? But that's
Mhm.
in a different context, primarily professionally. But where I'm going with this is the idea that I didn't know what I was truly passionate about, what I truly loved. I've always loved sports, so hey, it was easy for
Mhm.
me to get behind a tailgate or something like that.
Yeah.
But knowing what really drives you and focusing on that, and it doesn't need to be something that you want to do from a work perspective, but any form of a hobby. Something that I've really picked up during sobriety for me is golf. Golf is my escape. That is something that, hey, if I got free time, like you'll find me on the golf course. Like peace of
Mhm.
mind for me, whatever. Um, Things like cooking, but a lot of things that I didn't take for that I took for granted and didn't take seriously during my 4 years in undergrad was this
Mhm.
idea of connecting in clubs around topics or subjects that you're really interested in. And I
Oh
actually
yeah.
regret that because
Yes.
it provides you with another community, another group of people that you can become friends with, you can network with, but it's around this shared common bond of something
Mhm.
that you have. But and I'll end with this. I don't even know if that would have saved me. That like I don't think there's anything that would have saved me because I am who I am. I mean,
Okay.
I think alcohol would have found me regardless.
Yeah.
It could have been
Mhm.
delayed in college, but like I said, when I like something, I like something. There's no middle ground with it. So I think for me, it was really about uh, figuring out the spirituality aspect of my life that was super important. And um, hindsight's 2020. Could I have done that in college? Maybe, but there was no
Yeah.
focus on that. I had a singular goal, and it was, hey, how do I party?
Like, yeah, I totally agree. I think also like I don't want to call them regret, but like for lack of better words, yes. Like I wish I was more involved with other clubs. I mean, the two of us and our floor, we had those soccer intramural games that we would do. I don't know if you remember those, like the soccer like intramural team that we had our freshman year. We also, I mean, I had the soccer aspect, but you know, getting more clubs. Like for example, right now, I think your golf is my kickboxing, and I wish I had to discover that balance and back in my college days. But you definitely opened my eyes. Like now, it makes me think. Even if I had done all that, would I have escaped alcoholism? And who knows? I don't think so. Like you said, I know myself also. I think like I will have I think my biggest downfall was my pride. The fact that I was a foreigner in a come to environment and I was so proud, like especially coming from a culture where we didn't had like a drinking age. I was like, yeah, I can drink anyone here under the table, but that's not my objective. My objective is to graduate because you know I have this and do. But little did I know I was very cocky and that pretentious attitude led me to where I am right now. But yeah, uh, what I would like to know now is like, what is your support network? Like, you know, you said like you have like the fellowship of AA. What else do you have golf? What else do you have?
Well, me personally, I'm pretty open about who I am. So
Mm-hmm.
I've got my sponsor, very wise individual who I respect immensely. Um, and I've been working with a therapist lately too, and for me, it's really about staying on equilibrium in the key areas
Mm-hmm.
of my life. And when I look at the key areas of my life, you've got the personal life. So that's my wife, my family, my friends. I've got my professional life, which is everything I'm doing maybe around business school and my job. And then the other piece is my sobriety. And it's how do I make sure that everything is getting the appropriate care and feeding,
Mm-hmm.
and making sure that nothing falls by the wayside. So um, I've got my sponsor that I keep in touch with, that I continue to connect with. I've got a therapist that helps me with focusing on the key tasks at hand, because
Mm-hmm.
these are things I struggle with. I've got my career coach who's helping me with understanding, hey, what is my purpose in terms of where I want to go in my professional career, but more importantly, how do I devise a roadmap and a game plan for
Mm-hmm.
how to get there. Um, those I would say are the individuals that provide mentorship in various forms. Now, my wife, I mean, she's my best friend. Um, I'm pretty open and honest with her in terms of
Mm-hmm.
how I'm feeling, and this journey that I've been on through
Mm-hmm.
recovery. And I think it all starts with her. I mean, there she knows me better than anybody else on this earth. Like, that's a fact.
Mm-hmm.
She knows exactly what I'm thinking when I'm thinking it, just by a stupid smirk on my face. And having that connection and that ability to communicate freely and transparently
Mm-hmm.
is something that I'm always grateful for. But um I've got golf. Um, that is something that it's a way for me to unplug. And one thing that I struggle with too is I have ADHD, and ADHD and substance abuse, they oftentimes they overlap. And for me, it's
Mm-hmm.
about staying focused and focusing on the correct things, more importantly. Um, but for me, golf is an escape. It's an escape from everything going on in my life, just being out there in nature. I'm not good, but I keep coming back each and every day. So I have that, and then I'm really focused on the spiritual wellness and physical wellness. So I've recently
Mm-hmm.
started CrossFit. That's something that
Hell
uh,
yeah.
I'm God. Whew, that's a challenge, but I
Yeah.
truly enjoy it, and it helps keep me centered. And for me, I think the
Mm-hmm.
biggest thing is I need structure in my life. If I don't have
Mm-hmm.
structure, then things can get chaotic pretty quickly. But
Yeah.
through those various forms of mentors that I've described, and having the outlets to gain some form of pleasure recreationally, whether it's the gym or through golf or whatever that may be, and having people to communicate with, that's what helps build the structure in my life today. I didn't talk about it because obviously, obviously, I'm not going to share names, but I've met great friends in my journey to recovery who've also, like us, they've gone through some dark days, and some of them, like I said, I would call them lifelong friends. They are
Mm-hmm.
people that I can pick up the phone and talk to at any point in time. And more importantly, they're people that will hold me accountable. Like, people who will call me out when it's
Yeah.
required. And that's something
Mm-hmm.
that is also important. I don't need to surround myself with yes men. I want to surround
Yes.
myself with people who are always trying to tell me, well, hey, you can do things this way instead. It's about
Yeah.
continuous improvement. And if I don't have that, then I'm going to remain stagnant.
Yeah, like, oh man, like the last part you said about people who hold you accountable, like I don't know who said it. But if I think it was a friend of mine, I don't know where I heard it, but it goes like, if somebody tells you your shit doesn't smell and you believe them, it's on you. Like that's what it basically is. Like, we all have flaws and stuff. And like it's it's hard not to fall into the trap of like not wanting to hear what you need to hear because it doesn't make you feel good. Like, and I totally agree with you. Like in this life now, I have people who can hold me accountable and like be like, "Yo, Benny, you fucking up, man. Like you out of pocket, you know." Last question before I give you the floor. We're about to reach the end of this interview. Um, have you reconnected with, other buddies from college or from the past who now know that you are sober? And how do you approach like your sobriety or disclosing your sobriety to the people who knew the old you?
Oh, that's actually not a concern for me at all. The only
Mm-hmm.
the only place I get a little weary about disclosing sobriety, and I actually don't, is really in work relationships. If I'm out
Mm-hmm.
at a social event for work, um, the topic typically comes up, and I say, "Yeah, I don't drink anymore." It's we try to keep it high level like that, but
Mm-hmm.
um, I like to I tend to overshare, but it's about my life. And hey, if I'm
Yeah.
comfortable with you knowing, then that's fine. And a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
people that I hung out with, I hung out with in college, that I was friends with in college, they're pretty aware that, hey, this is the journey that I've embarked upon. And I mean, I share that, look, what was what I was doing in the past simply didn't work for me. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at my life as a marathon and not a sprint. And if I want to continue running in this marathon, then there are adjustments that I needed to make, um, from a lifestyle perspective, from a spirituality perspective, that had I not done would probably alter the course of my life. So everyone's very open and honest about that.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I will say as we wrap up here is I try not to live with regrets, but being that the topic of this conversation is college,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that I do feel is that I don't know if people truly got to know me as a person in college.
Oh shit. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, go
And
ahead.
yeah, I mean, I think I was simply known as a drunk, but do they know anything about me, what I'm like as a person, anything deeper than what you see at the surface level? And no. And a lot of that is because I simply chose not to disclose that because I was focused on drinking. I'm showing you the facade that I wanted you to see. Although in hindsight, that's really not something I would want people to be seeing. So
Mm-hmm.
I look at my the relationships that I made in school, and I think everybody saw me through one lens. And if you could go back, which you can't, maybe give them an opportunity to see things from another. But um, everyone is everyone is supportive about the decisions that I've chosen to make in my life, and I haven't had to have any difficult conversations. And I always just go back to, these were the things that I needed to do for me, and I needed to do it for me first, because doing anything for someone else is not going to yield the results that I need.
Damn, like wow, I didn't even think about that. Now you make me think. Did the people knew the real me? Like, like my thing is I always saw an advantage in people not knowing the real me because as a form of protection. It was easier for me as being an immigrant to try to adapt and study how other people think and put a wall to see how toward people to see how I think, to protect myself. Like ridicule didn't affect me much. Cultural shock is a thing that like I experienced several times. So, you know, people perception of me flew over my head. There's one thing that I noticed is like when I was high and drunk, I care less. I didn't care about what people were thinking about me. But when I got sober, I care even less. Like, with me and the way I disclose my sobriety to people that I'm in recovery, I'm like, I came back from hell, man. There's nothing you can do to me that I didn't do to myself. Like, of course, I live with regrets. The people I hurt, like, sometimes I don't sleep because, like, of like, oh my God, what I have done? But like, to have somebody use it against me because it's just, I don't know. It just doesn't hit. Like, I'm not living in fear. And yeah, like you bro, this interview is great because there's so many topics that I didn't even, and that's what I like about this podcast. Like the way, you sharing your thoughts and what works for you and you challenging my way of thinking. Like, huh, I guess like people didn't get to know the real me I either. And would I have changed it? Man, I need to sit down and think about it. But
Change
yeah,
it or
like
not, we can't.
yeah, exactly. It's moot. Like it's pointless to think about it. But yeah. All right, all right. A big thank you again to Brian for being the guest on Stairway to Redemption. And guys, I will see you later for the conclusion. Bye. All right, all right, all right. What a way to end this episode of Stairway to Redemption with this question that Brian asked. Do people know the real us when we in college, drinking and partying, especially at the age where we're trying to figure out we are as person, and even outside of like just being drunk and drinking, just in general, do we know ourselves while we're in college? So do even others know who we are when we are in college? Yeah, guys, it was a great episode. All right, guys, as usual, I will see you next week, and happy holidays. Maybe not next week. I'm not sure if I'm gonna release an episode between Friday between the Friday between the holidays and New Year's. But yeah, I will see you guys when I see you. Bye.